Hello, good morning, everyone. I trust God you are all doing well. It's another beautiful Monday morning, being the 29th day of January 2024. And this morning, I bring to you the Punch newspaper and Al Jazeera newspaper. And the headlines I am seeing here today is worth sharing with you as usual. Our big news today from the Punch newspaper is kidnapping epidemic, tracking device shortage, hindering police probes. And the writer says death of tracking devices causes delays in investigations, arrest of abductors, says investors. And that story is on page 2, 3, 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Honestly, I wish our country could have the technology required to track crimes, to track people involved in kidnapping and other crime in the society. It will go a long way to reduce crimes. All right, again we have another story here which says NDLEA declares beauty queen wanted, naps Brazil returnee. And that story is on page 4 of the Punch newspaper. Again we have another story here which says 40 trillion naira local government allocations diverted by government, by governors. That story is on page 7 of the Punch newspaper this morning. It's a sad one. Again we have another story here which says Osun Prince detained after US base proves murder. That story is on page 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Again we have another story here which says manufacturers plan general price hike, and that story is on page 20 of the Punch newspaper this morning. Honestly, there was a day I was going to town, and I was in a taxi, and we were discussing with some of the passengers inside that particular taxi that our country seems not to have a regulatory body, especially when it comes to the prices of goods and services. Any manufacturer, including retailers, wholesalers, they could just set price for their product as they like. Like this one can sell his or her product for 2,000, the same product can be sold for 3,000 in the next shop, the same product, and there's no rules and regulation, there's no set rules and regulation guiding the selling of products. I know the fuel price is high, but then I think these drivers and these manufacturers and wholesalers, they are in fact they are doing it too much. Like they are adding too much prices to their goods and services, and that is really affecting a common Nigerian. Please, our government should look into this. It's not correct at all. Again we have another story here which says Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger yet to exit formally ECOWAS. That story is on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. Again we have another story here which says federal government appoints 6 governors to minimum wage panel. That story is on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. Again we have another story here which says okay, to our Al Jazeera newspaper, our big news today is Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, juntas dump ECOWAS, and that story is on page 9 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. Again, we have another story here which says Taraba, tension in T.Y. Danjuma's hometown over traditional stool, and that story is on page 17 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. Again, we have another one here which says I will make Kogi investment destination. Ododo. That story is on page 5 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. Again, we have another one here which says World Bank to restructure $200 million project in Nigeria over poor performance, and that story is on page 15 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. Again, we have another one here which says bandits, kidnappers, infamous days numbered, says Wike. That story is on page 6 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. Again, we have another one here which says military deploys special forces to plateau others. That story is on page 5 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. Again we have another one here which says pace setter in public service. That story is on page 23 of Al Jazeera newspaper. Again, we have another one here which says family demand justice as MOAP keeps Akpabio's aid. That story is on page 6 of Al Jazeera newspaper. Again, we have another one here which says Navy denies fraud allegations against CNS. That story is on page 8 of Al Jazeera newspaper. Again, we have another one here which says Rwanda urges vigilance against bandits, inaugurates 3 Islamia schools. That story is on page 6 of Al Jazeera newspaper this morning. And these are the headlines we have today from the Punch newspaper and Al Jazeera newspaper, and I felt it is very important to share with you as usual. Thank you so much for watching.